we are proud to introduce you to the Forgotten Flyway. Bringing respect to the Atlantic Flyway name.
Dude, we're back. I didn't get to tag in with you when I was down in Virginia, but here we are, and we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hunting that's happened since then, since the last time we spoke, and I think we've got a couple hunts to break down. Maybe not deep dive, but we've got a couple pretty good hunts to talk about. Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, maybe a little bit in Jersey.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. Since I got home, I have completely everything's locked up. I mean, even the Delaware River's got ice in it. I'm sure I could have gone and busted some stuff, but I haven't even messed with it. There's a chance that we get a little thaw next week, and the coastal stays open till the 31st. So that's kind of what I got my fingers crossed for. And I think I laid in a goose field for like an hour, kind of mess around, but I think I am going to go tomorrow morning and potentially Friday. So that closes on Saturday. So trying to get that in.
Sweet. I know you sent me a picture of one banger hunt and then one really cool thing you got to go home with. I think we should just dive right into first the first picture that you sent me, the big stack. That looked like it was a banner day.
Dude, so that Virginia trip, here. Man.
Tell us kind of generally where you are. I don't need a pin, but give us a setting.
So it's the Eastern Shore of Virginia. Like I told you guys before I was getting ready for the trip, we get down there. I kind of always keep that trip like the second week in January because that's typically when that bay has the most birds, just on a calendar year kind of whoop-de-doo. If you get weather, it could get really good. You know, if you don't have weather, it's not going to be like slim pickings. So as it turns out, I get down there Thursday night. I hunted Friday morning, kind of kept it light, like a little scout hunt, kind of shot a couple ducks, but wanted to see what was moving. It was a little light. It actually scared me, but then we had that front coming in on Saturday, so it snowed all Friday night into Saturday morning. We literally get out there. I think we have 3 or 4 groups out on the bay, two or three guys each, and we absolutely smashed them. We shot the flyway. My buddies shot a pair of redheads, which they had told me they had shot ruddy ducks, and I go out to that pile and I'm looking, and they only got the hen. The drake got away, crippled, and so I go over to it. I'm like, that ain't a ruddy duck, bud. That's a redhead, and we usually don't shoot them on the ocean side. But dude, we shot pintail, gadwall, mallards, black ducks, redheads, had a couple brant in there. It was an absolute banner day. My buddies, we literally saw probably 3 or 4 different flocks of like 20 to 30 pintail, which, as you guys know, like the pintail is kind of like the Atlantic Flyway. It's like more of a trophy bird, and to see the number of pintail, we went that entire trip. I was down there for 7 days. I didn't go a single day without seeing at least 3 to 4 pintail. Clearly identified, clear as day. Most days I saw more than that. So it was fun. We ended up, I think, overall shooting 5 or 6 pintail the whole trip. But just weather, man. Weather and getting after it, and a little bit of historical data, and it turned out to be a banger. So that was the big Saturday, and we ate like kings that night. Did a little steak, did a little crab soup, did a little duck gumbo, did it all. So it was a blast, man.
Sounds like a much needed and well-deserved trip after everything we got to see unfold in your other side of the world here.
Yeah. It was Well, I got to
I can't lie,
watch
it
the
hurt.
misery of Penn State losing to Notre Dame while I was down there too. So it was infuriating, to be completely honest with you. And maybe we took it out on the Ducks the next day. I'm not going to say we did or didn't, but
Well,
it
let
was
me tell
infuriating.
you, when you sent me that pile picture, I was, I don't know, I was in the middle of a dark to dark goose hunt. Um, like you said, we had to battle the weather, and the cold it was pretty bad. Um, it was an all day long sit. My buddy and I hunted in his pit blind in South Central PA, and we had several thousand birds on a roost nearby. We knew it was going to be eventually good traffic. It was just a matter of when the birds decided to fly. And there was maybe a little bit of snow in the forecast. There was snow overnight. There was some that might have been trickling into the first hour of light. I've seen some crazy things happen. So I like to maximize my time out there. And if I don't have to tend to any obligations throughout the day, I'm sitting in the pit blind all day. So
No doubt.
outside of going to the local diner, we sat dark to dark in the pit and we shot one goose. So getting that picture from you, it hurt. It didn't feel good.
Oh man, you didn't tell me all that. Now I feel bad, kind of, a little bit.
Well,
Well, dude, it was funny. Like, we dealt with ice pretty bad down there, and like I knew, obviously, I'm sitting here now a week later. You closed your season, scrapping through the ice, but we battled ice down there. And the last time I'd seen that bay with a lot of ice on it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I'm sure it did at some point in time, but not when I was down there. And it got us a couple days, to be completely honest with you. The days where the wind wasn't quite up as much, like I couldn't get back to holes that I wanted to. I mean, I watched like a mid-afternoon scout. We hunted in the morning, got back to the house, and then I just jumped in the boat. My grandpa's, like, his house sits right on the tidal creek, so we just leave the boats in and tie them up to the dock and then run in and out. And got a little breakfast and then brunch and then ran out there, and I watched probably 200-300 birds dump into this little ice pocket. Like, wait, but like I was glassing and I was like, dude, how in the hell are they, like, it just looked like ice, and then you'd kind of move a little bit and drift, and then you'd see the little pocket that was open. And but anyway, it was really hard to kind of pinpoint exactly where they were, especially when you're kind of in that bigger open bay with some marsh. But the Iceman is brutal. And like now, I mean, my buddy's got a farm that usually has at least some type of goose traffic. It's a little bit more inland, and like they disappeared 2 or 3 days ago. So I think it's got all these birds up here, at least in this latitude, trying to figure out where they can get wet and get a little drink. It's been tough sledding.
yeah. I mean, as just a general overview on the season, the weather's either been a blessing or a curse. A curse
Yeah.
most of the time, but it it treated us pretty well so far in the last 2 weeks of the season here, and I'm hoping as we get closer to the beginning of February, things start to look good for us for the Pennsylvania RP goose season for the whole month of February.
Explain that to me, because we got a little extended one here in Jersey, but like the section's really goofy. Where are they open in Pennsylvania? I'm completely blank
So
with that.
basically, I would say about 80% of the state is open during that time. There's two main zones for goose hunting in Pennsylvania, and the higher population with more migrating birds is our AP zone, the Atlantic population zone, which is just this very southeast corner of the state, pretty much. Then the rest of it, you can now down in the AP, you can shoot less birds, and there's less days you can hunt. In the RP, which is the resident population, there's significantly more days that you're able to hunt, and you can shoot 5 birds versus 3 birds.
Do you know how the states delineate those lines. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you here. The reason I'm asking this is because I think I may be speaking out of my ass here, but I think New Jersey kind of just makes shit up sometimes because, like, our extended season is literally like a little block of the state, and like 80% of it is the Pine Barrens. So you're kind of like, but I'm driving north 206 just a little bit, and there are more geese than you could count on all of these ag fields. And you don't like, they're definitely residents. It's funny, like I have a little horse farm next door to me, and every spring there's a flock. The only reason I know it's the same pile of birds is there's 4 bands in there, and I go over there and I glass them every single time, and I'm like, these birds are back like magnets, and they really don't leave. They haven't left. They left like a couple weeks ago. They're going to be back probably mid-February when everything thaws out. So it's just, how does Pennsylvania like delineate those lines? Is there more research that goes into it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that it has to do with the Pennsylvania Game Commission waterfowl biologist meeting with a board of people that are far above my pay grade that know way more than me.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact answer on how they do it. I can say that the line that they have for us for the AP and the RP, you notice a pretty significant increase in birds when you get inside the AP. You'll see a lot more migrating action, whether it's birds actually migrating into the area or over that area. It's definitely a more densely populated flight line. I have a what I call border farm. It's one property owner that owns land on one side of the farm is on the AP and one side of the farm is on the RP. Depending on what roost those geese are using, I might have a traffic line over the RP side of the field if they're going from inside the RP into the AP. I can go set up and shoot traffic on those birds and shoot 5 a man versus going and hunting the X and only being able to shoot 3 a man. So,
yeah.
And there's also, I can hunt probably, it's got to be about 30 more days. I don't know the exact number. I should, but I don't. I can hunt probably 30 more days on the north side of that farm just because it's in the RP, and it's the same birds. It's the same birds. And we've shot several bands off that farm that have proven to be local residents and migrating birds.
That's super interesting. Bands. Got my first one, bud. Last bird of the trip. Had a 3-pack of Brant come in rotten. Me and my buddy. I was on the right side of my boat blind. He was on the left side. They passed us like 20 minutes earlier flying the bay. And we just had a black duck rig out with a couple other, miscellaneous puddle ducks. They come running back low. So we just started. Brr, brr, brr. Here they come, hooked up. And he shot into the first 2. They kind of flared his side of the blind. So I shot the back one, missed the first time, crippled him on the second. I run out there and I finish him off, go pick him up. Sure as shit. Has a band on it. And it was a 1-800 band. Banded in 2016. The bird hatched 2015 or earlier, so it was at least a 10-year-old bird, which is pretty freaking cool. And like,
yeah, that's awesome, man.
Sentimentally for me, like I told you in the first episode about how I used to sit in that bay when I was 8-9 years old with my grandpa and my Uncle John, just glassing Brant on the other side of the bay. And I've been associated with a few bands that may or may not have been on camera that I definitely shot, but did not end up in my possession, which is fine. But I'll take this first one as being a really cool kind of meant to be coalition. But it was sweet, man. And it ended up being the last bird of that trip. We ended up taking Friday off to clean up the house and get everything situated, and but bands, sweet, dude. Waited a long time. I shot a lot of ducks and geese, and I haven't haven't I haven't had the luck of many other hunters around, so it was sweet.
It's always a little bit sweeter when there's no draw too. That makes it all that much better. When you can say undoubtedly that you shot that bird, that's your band.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome.
I was able to say the same thing on my first band, and I was, I don't know, not old enough to drive. My dad had me out. We were hunting ducks in the morning, and we were floating in a canoe, and we put in way upstream, set up floated about halfway down to where we were going to take out, set up decoys. We did shoot a couple ducks, and then packed it up, floated down to where we were going to take out, and there was a crippled goose standing on just like right on the edge of the woods, and I saw it, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, there's a goose over there," and he was like, "Well, why are you telling me? Just go shoot it." He's like, "They're in season. You're legal to shoot it here. Just go shoot it." It's like, "Okay." And I looked back at him. I was probably 20 yards away from the bird. He was probably 20 yards behind me. And I said, "Too bad it's not banded." And shoot the bird, and I run over to it, pick it up. It's got an old worn band that pretty much blended in with its leg on it. I said, "Dad, it's got a fucking band." And I got scolded for using foul language, and he was like, "Dude, I get you're joking, but come on, man, you don't need to take it that far." And I'm like, "Dad, seriously, it's fucking banded." and that's what he could tell. I walked close enough that he could see the band too, and he goes, "Holy shit, it does have a band." And that was a 13-year-old bird from just the next town over from where I shot it. Someone must have, it looked like it got shot in the wing and couldn't fly anymore, and it just happened to be where I was going.
Dude, meant to be. You never forget that. Mine's so fresh, but you never forget the first one, and that's pretty sweet.
That was probably 12 or 13 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, dude. Well, what do you got here for the last push, man? Like I said, we got till next Friday here in Jersey to shoot ducks. We have a little bit of an extended season with geese. Got a potential to get into some snow geese. Let's talk about you sent me some pictures from your last hunt in PA, that last duck hunt in PA. I got to get you down here in Jersey next week if you got some time. It's like I said, it's looking like it might thaw out, and I'm kind of excited about that. But talk me through that last PA hunt, because it looked pretty interesting on the big water. A little bit of ice, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, figuring it out. But you kind of passed up a potential field massacre, but they'd been coming in a little late, and we had overcast that day. So kind of walk me through it.
Yeah, I was pretty torn on what exactly to do. I'd almost pretty much given up after that goose hunt in the pit with Colson on the prior Saturday. I knew that we were gonna freeze out. Yeah. I was with Colson last Saturday. Yeah. That's my hunting buddy. If I'm out, I'm usually going with him. So Colson called me. He had been working on getting permission on a 2,000 duck feed, and you don't see that every day here. There might be some guys that listen to this from the Midwest, and they wouldn't even really hit the brakes for 2,000 ducks. But here, that's doing something. If you find 500 ducks, if you find 100 ducks in a field, you're doing something. So he was sending videos. It was every bit of 2,000 ducks. The weather was going to be overnight again, and then potentially a little bit of weather in the middle of the day on Saturday, which is the last day of duck season here. Last Saturday, I think it was the 19th. So I was kind of on the edge about going down there. If I didn't really have anything going on, I was going to go down there, even if it was going to be bluebird and those ducks were showing up 30 minutes after light. I was going down there just to watch the show. I absolutely love to unload the gun, kick back, and just watch them do their thing. And I'm 100% content with doing that. So I told Colson, I was like, hey, let me scout on Friday. I'll see what I got up my way, and let me know if you get solid permission on that, and we'll reconvene. So Friday evening, I knew all week long we barely got above freezing. I knew all the small water stuff was going to be locked up. I knew that if I found ducks, they'd be concentrated on big water where there might be some open holes. Our main river was pretty well frozen. If you got a boat out, you were lucky. There, there was a river rescue that happened not too far from us. I don't know the details on that, but there was a river rescue last Saturday on the last day of duck season. So it was the conditions were pretty much as bad as you can get without wind. Add in some 20-mile-an-hour plus winds with that, and it's deadly. Lots of sheet ice on the river that I ended up hunting, and with temperature fluctuations and ice melt, you can have river level rise that can break sheet ice free, and that current, there's nothing stopping it. It can take out, if you run 10 dozen decoys, it can take all 10 dozen out, and there's nothing you can do about it. So there's a little bit of a risk involved with equipment when going to do that stuff. So we like to kind of pack light. I ended up finding about 250 black ducks on a local river, and it had been the biggest flocks of blacks that I've ever seen in PA. The weather up north was right. The birds were finally pushing down on the last day of the season, or this was the second to last day of the season while I'm scouting. And I had seen some flocks of 40, some 50, some 60, and they all ended up in the same place. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go hunt it. There's no chance I'm gonna go do anything else but go hunt that spot. It was public, and it was along a major highway, as pretty much everyone knows. If you're local, you know where I'm talking about. So I knew there was eyes on it. I got up at 2:45 in the morning and got down there by about 3:15, 3:30. Got everything all set up. Left somebody down there, went to the local gas station and hung out for an hour and a half. Came back, relieved them. They went to the gas station, got warm, came back for first light, and it was on. There might have been a couple discrepancies with shot calls or lack thereof. At first, I knew it was a big amount of ducks, and my friends also know when I'm fun hunting, I get really, really greedy with shot calls. It's how I was brought up into the waterfowl world. The guys that taught me only shot birds that were backpedaling over decoys, 110% committed. I've just always been the same way because it's what gets me going. I don't know. I just don't, I guess there's sport in shooting birds at 60 over top, but it's just not my thing.
Dude, let's hit that after this. Finish the story, but let's dive into that, because we could talk for probably 3 hours about that. But finish this and let's get back to that point. Don't let me miss it.
First thing in the morning, we had a 4-pack of black ducks land about 60 yards downstream of the decoys, which never usually fares too well. I prefer them to land on the upstream side so they can float down in as they're feeding. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so I was doing a little bit of light muffled calling to get their attention, let them know, hey, there's some more food up here. They're working their way up. They close it. It was like a turkey hunt. They closed it from 60 to 40, and then to about 35 on the downstream side. And I told the guys, I was like, hey, we're going to wait for them to swim into the decoys because there's a lot of ice. It's dangerous. This is a slick river. It's cold. We can't be running after birds in here. So let's let them get up into the decoys, make sure we can kill them dead, and we'll be good to go. So they hang up 30 yards downstream. Then the ducks really start to fly. This is in a matter of probably about 5 minutes or so. And we had a group of probably like 30 or 40 black ducks out, land maybe 80 yards out in front of us. And I was like, well, there's our first big bunch of the morning. We're going to just kind of hang out, put the guns down, not really worry about much of anything. I don't want to shoot at 4 black ducks that are 30 yards, 40 yards downstream and spook all these birds that are out. There's birds continue to pile into there. There's probably at one point about maybe 100, 120 black ducks out in front of us, anywhere from 80 to 150 yards. And I was like, all right, that's our birds. We got to let them stage, and we'll let them transition off of this spot. And per the scout, ideally they'll trickle back in singles, pairs, and fours. That ended up not really panning out for us. We waited and waited. We shot 2 Drake black ducks. We did get 1 goose to come into our. We put some goose decoys on a little ice shelf island that was formed around a rock. That was it, dude. It looked juicy. It's exactly where the birds were sitting the day prior. The weather changed enough for them to switch their pattern. We ended up getting a little bit of sleet and a little bit of snow from about 11 o'clock to about 2:30. And that 2:30 marks really when they started heading back there the day prior. And they never really showed back up. And we waited. We hunted dark to dark, freezing cold. My buddy Chris did leave to go put his plow on his truck for the snowstorm that was coming up the next day. And he was nice enough to bring us a pizza back. So that really, really lifted the spirits around 2 o'clock when we were sitting there not shooting much of anything.
There you go.
Yeah.
Black ducks doing black duck things.
It was a bust, and then Colson went out. He did get permission on the field. I told him, hey, if we kill a limit first thing in the morning, I'm going to come down and film. If we're out of here by a decent time and I can still make it down there, I'll come in and try to shoot a couple ducks. And if I get locked down here on the river, then so be it. I'm going to miss out, and it's going to suck. Colson pulled into the field at probably about 12:45. He sent me a video of ducks just pouring into it right in the middle of the day, right when we got that small little isolated cell of storm. But they did end up shooting a handful of mallards. They missed a nice Drake pintail that came in that they claim maybe should have died. But they did actually get to unload and kick back and watch the show, and they sent me some videos, and you don't get to see that here every day.
Yeah, I think I saw he posted one of those videos too. I saw it on Instagram. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
that was.
And that was a fraction of the ducks that were going in there.
That's crazy. And let's get back to that shot calling thing. And also those black ducks, dude, they'll buzz the decoys, they'll blue ball you, and then they'll just say, you know what, man, we're gonna land just far enough out. But shot calling. So you've obviously guided in several flyways. I've had a few other acquaintances that have had the opportunity to guide up in like Canada for those brown ducks, early season, things of that nature. And they talk about that. There's an art to it, man. And subsequently, with my group of buddies up here, I'm typically the guy who blows the duck call. Therefore, I'm also typically the guy that has to call the shot. And it's because I'm the same way as you are in terms of like when I'm hunting, man, like I don't know if it's the former football player in me or what, but like I want to beat them. Like I sure, to your point, shooting them at 60 yards pass shot, like it's sweet, like, oh yeah, like you high five, whatever. But I'd rather conserve my ammunition, make sure I'm doing it the right way, ethical shots, to your point. Yeah, exactly. Especially now. Um, but there's just something to like really, really fooling them that like fires me up. And my buddies hate me because I'm like, one more. I'm like, one more. And then, most of the time that one more turns into a, hey, something ain't right. They're gone.
Yep.
And I get scolded like a dog. But to your point, I also sit there and I go, that was still pretty freaking sweet, dude. We had, 40 mallards over top of us ready to do it. And, hey, let's make sure let's make sure we get them. But those times that it does work out, talk to me about your thought process though when you are calling shots, because for me, like, it varies by species. I've had the chance to really target teal down here in Jersey, and they're like, to me, they're the hardest to call a shot on, because it's like, if it ain't touching the water, you got a real hard time timing that up, because it's a fraction of milliseconds before they're in and out, especially if you got a little wind. But talk to me a little bit about your thought process, because of your experience probably having to call shots on some Mondo wads.
Yeah, it's not a responsibility that I really love, to be honest with you. I would probably rather just kick back and talk shit on someone else for messing it up.
Yeah.
So going into it, I have two different mindsets going into two different types of hunts. I have my hey, this is a paid hunt. I need to get as many shells fired and as many birds down as possible for these paying customers. And I also have the mindset of, hey, this is a fun hunt with me and the buddies, and I'm doing it how I want, not how I have to. So the biggest thing that I take into consideration when I want to maximize on opportunities is timing. I need to make sure that I prepare everyone in the blind to have the best shot possible for all three shots that they're going to fire before those ducks actually get in and out of the hole. So I noticed early on in my career, I was calling so many shots way too late. It was 2 or 3 effective shots right off the bat, and then a bunch of Hail Marys ringing out after that. I started taking notes basically on different ducks in different conditions and how I had to time it. And their body language is going to tell you, hey, they're going to come down here and bank 10 yards above the mojo and flare up and pick up. Or, oh, okay, these ducks are going to land, so I don't need to be as pressed with trying to time it. I just want to make sure that most of them land and I still have a few up in the back, and we're good to go. Now, for example, like the teal, that's a huge one. The timing is very, very important. And that's one thing that's the same for me on fun hunts and buddy hunts and paid hunts. Teal, you have to be perfect on your timing, or they're there and gone, and you're killing one maybe and wasting ammo. And it's going to be a big wad, and it's chaotic. So you need to give everyone as much time as possible to get their gun up, get their cheek down, get a bead, pick a bird, transition, pick another bird, and maybe get a Hail Mary shot on the way out. So I would say timing is everything in the shot call.
Dude, you hit it spot on. Like, I think the element of, because most of the time there's, when we're talking like big wads, I probably got at least 3 or 4 guns, whether in a blind or in the boat blind. And to your point, like, I'm so big on, like, I want everyone to have, and that goes into even when I'm setting decoys, right? Like, I'm trying to say, like, okay, the kill hole's here, but I need to stretch it out for this number of guns to my left or to my right, depending on how we're set, what the wind's doing, if we're hunting across or just pretty much a straight on wind at our back situation. Like, I think that element is tough and oftentimes overlooked, and that's why I think a lot of people miss opportunities, is they just don't take all of those things into account when they're thinking about it, and then when it comes time to call the shot, they're missing out on making their jobs easier, right? Like giving yourself as much time within that window as possible, because they either skip a step or they're not thinking about all those other elements that can ultimately affect go time. And then to your point, the species, and I think you said something really interesting about body language, right? Like that's one thing I've learned about calling, because I'm not like a phenomenal caller. And usually, like, it's funny, I talk to a lot of people that hunt the salt. They're like, I don't even bring duck calls, right? They're like, I'll bring a whistle. But I kind of take that, again, meathead, ex-football player challenge. Like, I take that as, no, I'm taking my duck calls. And because I sit on the marsh before light and I listen to these ducks lighten up and how they're doing things. And I think, I think I can do it, right? So even with that, like, what are you looking for specifically with the body language? With the birds, let's just say a black duck, right? Like what's the differentiation between a bird that is going to probably give you a really good look and a pass, and then maybe a bird that's going to give it up 100%? And I'm sure you're probably looking at that like 150-yard range while you still got your call in your hand, either giving them a little or something like that, just trying to finish them in. Like, what would be a key? Because I'm actually curious about this, because I'm probably going to use this.
So we can kind of take it from that 150-yard point, and we'll bring it home, and I'll tell you what I'm looking for along the way. So at 150 yards, we'll take into example this past Saturday. The ducks were fresh. You could tell that they were new to the area, so they're going to be a little bit more responsive to calling than normal. Now, being as it's the end of January, they've heard a lot of that from wherever they were at in Canada, the whole way down through New York to here.
Yeah.
But keeping in mind that I had fresh birds, I knew I could be a little bit more aggressive on calls right off the bat. In that type of situation, I like to get their attention, and I like to get them coming to me, and then I like to shut up. I feel once you have them looking at your decoys, that's gonna probably seal the deal for you. I do rely pretty heavily on a drake whistle towards the end of the season like this too. Whether that's doing single long whistles with it, or some kind of muted dabbling quick little whistles with it. I like to use it two different ways. But ducks crossing 150 yards. I'm gonna point the end of my call in front of where they're heading, so the sound meets them when they get to it instead of going behind them. And the first thing I'm going to do is typically I'll probably go for a cut down call in that situation, so I can really have some pop, and I know I'm reaching out there and touching them. What I'm looking for is any type of change in their body language, the wing beat, and especially with their head and neck. What I like to see is ducks check up. If the wing beat slows down and gets a little bit tighter, they're not flapping their wings at full extension. Maybe they're a little bit halfway in between, kind of floating a little bit. That's a positive sign right off the bat, and I'm going to hit them again. If they don't react to that, there's nothing I can do. I'm not going to sit there and blow my duck call for the rest of the day. I know pretty much within the first call or two if I'm going to be able to work these ducks or not. Maybe a miracle can happen one time or another, but I've learned that 99% of the time, once you hit them, if they keep going, they're going to keep going. So let's say I turn these ducks and they're coming in over towards my left-hand side. They're starting to circle around. They're getting closer to about 80 yards or so. You can tell they're coming towards where the sound came from. I might give them just maybe a couple single cut feeds just to encourage them a little bit more, get them focused. And at that point, I'm going to point my call out towards my decoys, maybe away from the ducks. Maybe I'm going to take the tip of my pointer finger and cover the exhaust on the insert of that duck call a little bit to kind of muffle or mute the sound. Black ducks are really wary. They have good ears. They can hear you a long ways away. They can hear you communicating within the blind if you're not gonna whisper or use a low tone of voice. They'll, especially on a calm day, they will hear you and they will go away. So I think it's vitally important that once a black duck shows interest, you don't overcall at all, and you don't call directly at the ducks until they're going directly away from you. So, got a duck coming in on the left about 80 yards or so. I give some feeds. What I'm looking for is the wings to slow down a little bit more and have a lot less flap to them, more of a setting motion. And I'm also looking at the feet and the rear end of the duck. If the feet deploy, or at least partially deploy, if they come untucked from the rear of the duck, you're in really good shape. Really good shape. That means it's considering landing and it's considering doing it now. So at that point, I drop my call and hide my face as well as I can. Now, let's say that duck comes into the corner, stays about 50 yards high, comes over top of the decoys, it continues on to my right-hand side, and it's starting to go into its circling. At this point, the duck is flying directly away from me on my right-hand side. I can get a little bit more aggressive. In that scenario, I typically switch to a quieter double reed call, and I'll hit them with a pretty high hen. It's maybe about half the volume of the initial call, the cut down selection. So my volume's down, but I'm still being aggressive with my calling. So I hit a high hen, and typically that's going to be your make or break point right there. The duck did not finish on that first pass. I would say 80% of black ducks that decoy are going to do it right initially on that first pass or not at all. Out on my right-hand side, black duck's flying away from me. I hit it with an aggressive high hen on the double reed. Let's say it starts to turn a little bit more. It's not quite facing me yet. It's still transitioning in its turn. I'll hit it with some more feeds, and that should be able to get it to finish and come around and center up and figure out where and how it needs to land. At that point, I'll be looking at how fast the wing beat is, if the wings are setting or not, how bowed the wings are, and I'm definitely going to check to see if feet are deploying. If the feet are out and you can see the webbing of the feet, they're coming. I'm also looking for the rear end of that duck to kind of drop down towards its legs a little bit, straighten up, and get the duck's body kind of more in an upright position as opposed to a flat position.
That's super interesting, especially the use of directional calling, right? Like that's something even I don't even really think about. I try to. I've listened to so many podcasts about guys in Arkansas in the timber, like blowing the call directly at the water because it just disperses it, kind of in no man's land, right? And to your point as well, like if you get ducks that are working directly over top of you, like I really try to not do anything and try to catch them when I get them on one side or the other if I need to. But that directional piece is gold for me in terms of how you think about projecting the volume of that call to where the ducks are going to be, and then depending on positioning of the caller, how they're going to react to that sound. That's gold. And like I said, like as for me, like I've had the chance to be able to call ducks in with my buddies who have hunted on the Salt in Jersey and who are like, I'm not even gonna bring my calls type of thing. And then, you do something and the ducks react and they turn and they bank and they're like, holy shit. They're like, whoa, like that happened. It's like, yeah, dude, like if you just stay on it and you kind of work on the timing and you read the body language, like there's so many elements that go into it. But I think that specifically speaking, that kind of directional cadence of how you direct the volume and the sound in terms of where the duck's going to be, and then also when they go to it, and then even switching calls, I get that. I do carry a cut down for more of the attention grabber, but then I do go. I blow pretty much a jargon megaphor for the majority of my other stuff because I think it's got a lot of range and can do a lot of different things on it. But that's sweet, dude. That's gold. And the fresh ducks point is big too.
One final tip on working black ducks and calling to black ducks. A little trick I have up my sleeve that I like to pull out towards the tail end of the season, usually the last third of the season, that you can really notice a difference and actually apply this and finish a duck or two maybe extra. I did this on just this past Saturday. We had a really stubborn single black duck that just kept circling and circling and circling, and he left and then he came back. He flew, must have been 800 yards away, and then just came back to us and circled again and again and again. And you could tell he was super interested in calling from far away. And then once he got closer, he didn't want to really hear it. I was even doing some pretty low stuff on a drake whistle, and you could tell his wings would start to beat a little bit faster. He would raise up maybe about 5-10 yards, and he was hovering. He was breaking his neck when he was above us, trying to figure out where do I want to land. It was a no-wind day, so anybody knows black ducks in no wind is a bad recipe. If they can circle, they will circle and circle and circle. So what I ended up doing was I let him go back out. I took out a cut down, popped him a couple times. Once he got at about 150, he turned back around, came in. He went over to our upwind side first, which for 4 miles an hour, give or take, whatever. There's not much of a wind to be upwind, but he did go to the upwind side first. Then when he got to the downwind side, I was wearing a quarter zip, and I put my call inside my quarter zip like this and muffle it with the rest of my arm. And I made a really loud, I blew full volume to be aggressive, but I blew the call into my quarter zip, into my hoodie. So it was really muffled, but I could still use the sounds that he wanted to hear when he was far away, but I backed down the volume manually by whatever means I had to. So I learned that from a dude who actually would wear a glove on his offhand and switch to calling with the glove. So I didn't have gloves on me, and that's just how I improvised. But I've used that trick several times, whether it be in timber in Arkansas or along a small creek or a river here in Pennsylvania for black ducks.
Wow. That's good.
It's not something that it's completely unorthodox, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, and you just got to try stuff.
Yeah, well, late season ducks, it's all hard, but it is fun, and I think that again, that calling aspect is such a big part of it too. Just like I said, talking about the decoys, even like that aspect, tricking them and getting them how you want them, man. I'll take fucking up a couple called shots and whatever. Maybe I could have shot a limit, but I'll take one duck doing it the right way.
That's where some of the shit talking came in on Saturday. There was a couple different groups that I wanted them to land or to be backpedaling, and there was a couple that hooked in and they were only 20 yards, but they were just cruising. They were locked up. They had feet down, but I could tell they weren't landing, and I wanted them to come around and take one more pass at it and try to land, and they didn't do it. It's the price you pay for being greedy. Maybe I'll learn. I probably won't.
Yeah. Well, we've been chopping it up. Like I said, we got to finish here. What do we got coming up next, man? You mentioned last time we chatted about potentially some biologists. I'm trying to think about how we want to do this. Like I'm tweaking over here now. This is my off-season projects, getting some decoys spun up. I'm tweaking on these. That's kind of what I do. And then hope I get the call for maybe a snow feed or something like that to carry me through February, beginning of March. And then I'm getting ready for fishing season. Probably have my boat in or thinking about getting my boat in and ready to trailer it up to the Raritan for the striper run. What do we got coming up, man? I think we definitely got to get a travel trip in. We got to do something with AJ, get like a really nice setting, chop it up maybe with a decoy carver, whether it be in Maryland, maybe even in Pennsylvania on your side. You guys got some studs along the Delaware River over there that I'd be really curious to pick their brain on at least.
Yeah, we'll get with Tyler, and he's got all the connections. Tyler Coleman with Full Circle Waterfowl and AJ Norton with Norton Creative Media have partnered up with us on this project, kind of as field producers. And yeah, we should get with Tyler here and get a carver on the books and maybe go take a little road trip on a Saturday or Sunday here and go tour a shop, sit down and talk about the history of the area with someone, bring a decoy home. That's what I'm looking most forward to. Bring a couple decoys home here and there on our trips.
Yeah, no doubt. Always got to stoke out the collection. That's probably the coolest part about. Like I said, I'm working on it a little bit. Just reading, studying. There's so many good decoy carvers from southeastern Pennsylvania down to even South Carolina, if you really want to get nerdy about it. But within probably 3 hours of us, a lot of guys have been doing some good stuff. I saw DU's been doing a really good job of highlighting some of those folks because they have either some decoys down in Memphis on display or whatever. But decoys, man, they fire me up.
Have you ever been to the Pyramid in Memphis?
I have. My
I
last
spent
excursion,
hours and hours in there.
dude. My last excursion in professional football, I played for the Memphis Express in the AAF, which lasted about 6 months, and living in Memphis was interesting, bro. Just to start that off, it was a very interesting town. But the one place that I did spend some time when I had some off time was in Jonesboro with my buddy Drew Morgan and his buddy Rowdy, fishing some of those ditches and looking at some spring ducks over there. And I was in the Pyramid just drooling.
Yeah,
it was pretty sweet.
That's a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
Awesome.
I would go back once a month if I could afford to go down there once a month. That's an awesome place. For anyone who's into anything waterfowl, and you don't know what we're talking about, the Bass Pro in Memphis has a pyramid, and it's the Ducks Unlimited Heritage Museum, and they've got all kinds of decoys from wicker, from old Native American wicker and reed woven decoys, the whole way up to the most meticulous pieces of art carved and painted by hand, and all the different shotguns and punt guns and everything that they have in there, all the old calls. You could spend hours upon hours. Like I said, I would go back once a month if I could.
It's electric.
If you're a waterfowl hunter and you're into this kind of stuff, that needs to be on your bucket list. Go hunt Northeast Arkansas and visit that museum. And as far as Mississippi Flyway stuff goes, that's all we're going to talk about for today. Back to the Atlantic Flyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I'm looking forward. I want to get at least 2 days in next week, I think. Been watching the weather. Like I said, warming up, little thaw. Never know what happens.
It's
Maybe some
the
of that
thaw's
reverse
coming.
migration we're talking about. I hope it doesn't come too late. But want to get at least 2 days in. Probably it's been my thing going out the last day with my dog, seeing what happens. Solo. So I'll probably do that on next Friday. But
This episode
yeah.
will probably be out by the time this hunt happens, but Pennsylvania does have a veterans hunt January 25th, this upcoming Saturday, and my dad is a vet, so this will be, I think, my third or fourth time taking him on one of the veterans hunts that they get a special day for here. If this water stays open, I scouted this morning and we've got some birds around still, and I think we're starting to get on that upward trend here as far as temperature goes. It was -6 this morning. I think tomorrow's going to be about 7. So we're moving up, man.
Knocking the minus off it at least. Easy.
Yeah. So there's still some birds around somehow, some way. We have a little bit of open water, and there's a lot of birds hanging on shelf ice. So if I deem it safe, we'd have the birds, and I'm going to take my old man out and try to shoot 2 black ducks and maybe a honker or 2 if they come by on Saturday.
I mean, let's be honest. There's snow in Pensacola, Florida. These ducks don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we could go set up a teal rig in Puerto Rico or something, but outside of that, I don't know what to do. There was a local band from here that was shot in Puerto Rico. I don't know if we talked about that on the show.
That's
I don't think we got into it on the first episode, but our local banding project, to me, had a blue-winged teal banded here and shot the same year down in Puerto Rico.
Holy hell. Do you guys have the early teal season in Pennsylvania?
No, we do not. Nope. I wish we had an early teal and wood duck season, but we don't have that here.
Jersey doesn't have it. I think Maryland does. Virginia definitely does. Does Delaware have it?
I believe so.
I've been tweaking on it, man. I tried it in Maryland a couple times. I was in on a lease down there in the just south the Easton area for a few years. It just hasn't worked out now that I have kids, and it's 2.5 hours. Like in a previous life was nothing for me, but now that 2.5 hours is much more valuable. Drooling on my pillow, but yeah, I really want to get in on one of those. I heard it's tough. You got to find them. Got to be where they are. But if they're there, it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's something I've actually never done. Was a teal season hunt. I've had some pretty great teal shoots in my life, but I've never specifically targeted teal.
Yeah.
One thing that I am looking forward to, it's not coming up soon, but it is coming up for next season, and we need to start thinking about this. We're going to put in swan applications. That's something I want to scratch off my list, and I know you do too. So we need to get swan applications in for anywhere that we can apply for in the Atlantic Flyway. That would be a banner trip.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to put a swan decoy in my house, but I might come home with one.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I can put it up. I'll put it up in the shop for a while. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Make some room. Gosh, dog. Well, that's good, man. We
January 31st. We got late season honkers, so get ready. Get those extra 2 hours of sleep now.
I'll be meandering over to Pennsylvania probably a couple times.
Great American Outdoor Show.
That seat.
We're gonna go hang out with Tyler Coleman. We're gonna go hang out with him. I think he's with Gundog Outdoors there. So that just happens to be right in right in the thick of the February goose season, and also right in the heart of the RP zone. So we typically do some go hunt before or after the show type deals, and see who we can get to come hang out with us in the blind from the show, maybe.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's plan on that. So stay tuned. We'll give you a little end of the season update, beginning of that extended goose season update, and then looking forward to getting a few of these trips on the books, highlighting some carvers and everything awesome about the Forgotten Flyway. It's a pain in the balls sometimes, but god damn, we love her. We love her, dude.
At least we got good fishing.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I got to get you over here, and we got to do a couple salt trips this summer. I'm supposed to have my second son in May area, so we could either get an early striper run in early April, up in the Raritan, like I said, or we do something late, like August, because that'll give me time to get everything settled. But I'm thinking maybe in August Mahi trip or something like that.
Late February, pretty much through April here. You'll have to pry me off the river because I'll be after the smallmouth. So
come on.
I will trade you a smallmouth trip for a striper trip, though.
All right, let's do it.
Yes, sir.
All right, folks. Appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back probably next week.
We'll do another one.
Yeah, we'll bring another one here.